And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. That's right, it's time for another not so deep dive. This time we are focusing on FC Cincinnati, and we are joined by our friends Ryan and Sam from the Flyin Lion Podcast. How we doing, guys?
Doing great. Ready to talk some FC Cincinnati today.
You got me
I
there.
gotcha.
Season's almost here, right? 2025. I think we're stoked. We're stoked.
Good, man. And I think everybody's a little bit excited. Lots of rule changes that have come on and gives a lot of rise to excitement for sure. But one of the things that we like to be excited about on this podcast are scarves and supporter scarves in general. So I want to throw it over to you guys for scarf of the week to start us off. Ryan, I'll start with you. What do you got today?
I love this segment, by the way. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So this is one of the original scarves. I think it might be upside down. I'll turn it around. But so from our 2016 inaugural year, we were in the USL. We had an FC Cincinnati one here. Pretty cool on the back side. We have our city skyline.
Oh, very nice.
This is one of my favorites. But that'll be my scarf of the week.
Very good. Yeah, and you're perfect. You fit right in with the segment because every single time we do it, one of us has it upside down too. So you're fitting right in. I love it. Sam, you got something today?
Yeah. Same kind of concept. Nice little FC Cincinnati from USL days. It's got, nice little line on this side and then the old crest on the other side. So we're rocking some old school stuff today.
I love it. Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I lived in Lexington, Kentucky for 3 years, so I made a lot of trips over to Cincinnati, bought a lot of scarves. Do have one from the inaugural MLS season. I've got two from when I went to away days there, but this one will always and forever be my favorite. It is the FC Cincinnati scarf.
Oh, wow.
And on the other side are racing wiener dogs.
Yeah.
With the
That's pretty
513 on it. When I bought it, I had no idea. It was right at the very end of the game. They were just closing the shop. I just went in and grabbed one. I was like, Cincinnati, that's unique. That's cool. Opened it up when I got home, like, oh my God, wiener dogs on the other side. Absolute W. So
If I think, Ryan, is that one of the Oktoberfest ones?
Oh, it's definitely one, but that's really cool.
No, it's a huge hit on the show. Anytime we talk FCC, this one comes out, which is a shame because I've got two other ones that are relatively nice. But how can I turn up racing wiener dogs, right?
You can't top that.
Exactly. So, we're gonna just jump right into it and talk a little bit about what 2024 looked like and preview a little bit about 2025, right? So, FC Cincinnati, they are all in the news right now as they spend big, but they also seem to be losing big. Not confirmed yet, but as Pat Noonan takes charge of another season after leading FC Cincinnati to a third-place finish in the East and an early playoff exit to New York City. They had equal struggles in Champions Cup, bouncing out to Monterrey in the second round in 2024. They also made it to the second knockout round in Leagues Cup before losing to Philly, and they didn't feature in the Open Cup. But in 2025, they will be back in Champions Cup. They will be back in Leagues Cup. They're going to look to go a little bit farther, but perhaps without some big familiar names, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to throw it over to you guys. How did you feel about the 2024 season just overall?
So starting out, coming off of Supporter Shield, season the year before, we had high hopes. We did have a ton of turnover. We had 5 people out of the starting lineup that got flipped. That was a lot of big questions. How are these guys going to fill the roles from the year before? Ultimately, we went on a hot stretch during the summer and then definitely cooled off after Leagues Cup. So it was a bit of an up and down year. Didn't make it to any finals, for cups. For a while there, had a record pace going, so couldn't be mad about that. But up and down and kind of left a bad taste in my mouth towards the end of the year, just with how it ended. So definitely looking forward to 2025 now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, injuries were a big part of that, especially, when you lose Miazga, you're solidified center back, all-star from the year prior, it kind of hurts there. And so you're trying to bring in guys to fill holes, and then Hagelin goes out too. So now you got to bring in, another center back. But I think the biggest thing for us in 2024 was not finding that consistent striker up top. And obviously, we'll talk a little bit about it. But we found that for hopefully this upcoming season. But yeah, 2024, obviously, we were looking to be Supporter Shield champs again, but I think remaining a top 3 club in the MLS, regular season still was a win for us, especially with all the, like Ryan said, change and turmoil in the, starting lineups, everything like that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think coming off of that year just as a neutral, quasi-neutral, I support New York Red Bull, so quasi-neutral. But watching it, I was like, I think everybody thought FCC were going to be always up there competing, always up there punching. I think a lot of us didn't think Miami would be that high, but Columbus were up there, Orlando were up there. But there was always this feeling, and I echo it as a Red Bull supporter, where Red Bull were terrible in the last half of the season, but so was everybody else. And it was like there was just like this plague on the Eastern Conference where nobody could win a game and move up or move down until like the last 2 weeks of the season. So I think that's a general feeling of a lot of teams in the East right now is underwhelming and really, really bright future for 25 for most of us. So, but you did kind of hint on it a little bit where, they did make some pretty good moves. So I want to throw it out there. I think I can kind of guess where this is going to go, but I want to throw it out to best addition first on a positive. Any surprises, or are we all going to go with the same one here? I think
I think best addition, obviously, I think is Kevin Denke. I mean, at the time he was, an MLS transfer all time, signing. And I think he's exactly, like I said, what FC Cincinnati have been looking for ever since Brendan Vasquez left. All of last season, we had a rotation at the striker position. Nobody really took a hold of it. A player like Kubo really stepped up and was kind of a striker for us. Got some goals where we never really thought would come from him. But yeah, Denke solidifies that position and kind of gives FC Cincinnati the opportunity for a new identity.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. And just seeing his profile, and being a Golden Boot winner, over in his league that he was in, coming here, how does that translate? Going from the Belgian league and coming to the MLS, but with that high dollar amount, is there pressure on that? And so from a lot of supporters here too, the question would be, how do you support this guy? It's like having a Ferrari, but without gas if you don't have a certain player. So I'm really excited to see, what he can do, but he needs some help as well. From all we're hearing, though, he's got all the tools and the assets to be just an unbelievable striker in this league. It's just about, actually going out and doing that on the field. We've had several number 9s that we've rotated in there, and they haven't done that. So hopefully we got this one right.
RIP the Yuya Kubo and Luca Orellano striker pair. Things you live for that people just wouldn't get in a couple of years. But I'd have to agree there. Record signing into MLS, lots of goals, something Cincinnati could not figure out last year. As you guys have all mentioned, the only hesitation I have, and this is as somebody who has signed a former Belgian second league striker who was really, really good. I feel like and we've talked about this when this whole rumor came in, there was this feeling that the Belgian league players struggle to adapt here. Like there's a whole list of them, and I don't have it with me right now, but there's a whole list of them that had come over here, and a lot of them were either big money moves who were average or mid money moves who were really bad. So Does he break that mold? And I think he does, especially if you can figure out how to get him that service, which I think we're going to talk about in this next segment here, biggest loss. And I know some things may not be solidified yet or confirmed. There are lots of rumors floating around. I will allow rumors as the biggest loss in assumptions here. So I'll throw it on over to you guys. Biggest loss for FCC this offseason.
Yeah, no, the big one obviously is Lucho, and a team that's, really become Lucho's team over the last several years. You lose your captain potentially, as we're going to say it as a rumor, but likely to happen. How do we figure that out? I think I was going to touch on it here in a little bit, but what does that look like for this season? We've had 3 wins, 6 losses, and 4 ties when Lucho was out. And over his 4 years, that's the only games that he's missed. And you can see the record, wasn't great. So how do we replace that production? How do we replace that, voice on the field? And honestly, how do we replace that recruiter? Look at the guys that he's brought in, Yamil Assad or Ashano. You've had some big time players that he's Lucho and buddies, is what we like to call it. Who's going to step up for that part of it too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, with the Lucho situation looming, obviously, I think that's an obvious answer. Former MLS MVP, but if you're not going to go with him as far as, biggest loss, because he's, not lost yet, but I would have to go with Cheeto Awaziam. I think, he was a force in the back line, and he was able to come in during a time, like I said, when, we needed a center back to kind of take control of that back line. And he really stepped up. And obviously, unfortunately, you have to move some things around on the roster to make other pieces fit. So I get that, but I think he is a big loss, and unfortunately, he moves inside the MLS as well. But I think you can make a good case for even Yamil Assad or Kevin Kelsey, just because Assad had a breakout season that you weren't expecting, and he could add some more depth, and Kelsey, the potential we saw it there within the first 7-8 games, right, to what he can do. But ultimately, I think the answer is Lucho for sure.
Yep, I think you guys hit it right on nail on the head there. Those were my two, Lucho being Lucho, and we've talked about it to nauseum, right? You don't just walk outside, throw a dart in a map, and be like, we're gonna go find our Lucho replacement right there, right? That sort of production over the 3 years he was here, or 4 years he was here, however long it ended up being. You don't just replace that by just picking somebody off the street, right? So that's going to be sorely missed. But I would agree. I think Awazian's another one that you have the players coming back from injury, but I always thought he brought some sort of presence there that was missed on a lot of MLS backlines. That he just had this kind of force about him that I really enjoyed while I watched him play. And I know that it was a salary move because Miazga came back and you couldn't fit it all under there, like you guys were saying. But you got to do what you got to do. I'm interested to see how he'll work out in Colorado, and that's for another story because they need the help back there. Zach Steffen needs people to stop kicking balls at him because he doesn't do so well with that. But it is the idea that Luciano Acosta is going to probably move on, and you can bring in players all the time, but at some point somebody's going to have to step up and either break out or become another level that they were at before. So I want to kind of ask you guys, who is that player that non-FCC fans should be watching to break out this year?
Yeah, I would say, the correct answer, that I should say is probably Denke. We want him to break out as much as possible. But as far as somebody else on the roster, I'm looking at Pavel Buka. Buka started every game he played during the MLS regular season. He was top 5 on the team in, most attacking categories. And then I believe, if Acosta does leave, it could allow Buka to step up more and, get more creative in his center midfield role, as well as, us signing a center defensive mid as depth. I feel like that kind of rotation allows him to take a breather, at certain games, because at the end of the season, we saw he was very, very gassed. So was most of the squad. But he also had a 6-game stretch there where he had 4 goals, 1 assist. I believe he had 2 goals in one of the games. So I think you could look for him to kind of get back to his Champions League form, I guess you would say.
Yeah. So I think that's a great shout, Sam. In the game, actually, we played Houston Dynamo this past week in preseason, and he played attacking mid. And we hadn't seen as much of Buka thrive on the offensive side of the field. So I don't think he's going to stay at attacking mid this year, but just more of an offensive side of him, and seeing him shooting from outside. We had heard so much about that. So I think that's a good shout. I'm going to go with Luca Orishano for mine. Everyone that watches our pod knows that I love this guy, but his potential, he had a breakout year in his first year, but what does he do without Lucho? Does he break out even more? Does he become that guy and the person that we can count on? We saw a glimpse of it last year. I think Dallas game, there was a few others that, we needed a goal and he gave it to us. He gave a lot of energy up top. And so I think him as the breakout player, that would be the one that I would pick.
I like both of those. Like, can those guys take another level? I had a couple that I wanted to pick here, and I went kind of, one was like a younger, didn't get a lot of minutes and could rotate in depending on formations and injuries, and that was Brett Halsey, excuse me, who had some sort of impact but not a ton of it. And it was just interesting to see how they were if he was going to take that step up from an outsider's point of view, as somebody like, you always have those players who are fringe players who then take that next big step. He's got Yedlin in front of him. He's got a couple of other, and what it looks like according, and as take transfer market as accurate as you'd like, he can be flexed into a lot of different roles and positions. So, how does he fit in and where does he fit in that team? Can he find a niche for himself that steps him onto another level? And the other one was Teenage Adebe. I with Awaziam gone, with Ian Murphy gone, depending on what that back line looks like, if they stick with three, if they go with two, whatever it looks like, where does he fit in as a player? I think obviously it's going to be Robinson, Miazga is the two, no doubt, right? And then who is it? Is it going to be Hadebe? Are you going to put new signing Gilberto Flores in there? Is Hagelin going to be that right-sided guy? What does that look like? Can he work himself into that starting 11 consistently? And can he play at a level that makes sense? Because I wasn't super thrilled with him, but that also could just be because if I remember correctly, he came in midway last year. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So
like September actually. So like
yeah,
only had 8 games with us, I think.
right. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm just getting thrown in, and how do I, just do my job, and we'll figure it out
Right.
next year, right? So now he's got a full preseason under him. Can he take that step into being either the third center back in a three or a really solid replacement for one of the others?
Yeah, no, great shout with both. Sam's a huge proponent of Brett Halsey, so if you
Nice.
want to touch on him a little bit, Sam.
Yeah, I would say, what we've seen from Halsey in the past is he can show a lot of flair off the bench real quick, brings energy all the time. I feel like the only thing that you're missing from Brett Halsey is the maturity, and I feel like that comes with watching a Yedlin, right? Or
Sure.
even in Alvis Powell, who also is kind of a veteran outside back. Both of those guys I feel like he should be able to learn from. And like you said, this is the year. Honestly, I think this may be his year. If he doesn't get that much time, I can't see him staying with FC Cincinnati with the amount of the potential that he could have.
Nice. Interesting. Well, yeah, that's those are always the interesting ones because you know what vaguely you know what a teenage Hadebe is going to give you. You know what Luca's going to give you. You know what Pavel Buka should be giving you unless he gets flexed into a different role. But I always like those ones that are you don't quite know, but you got a feeling. You just got
Right.
a good feeling about it.
Hmm.
That kind of moves us on to this next section here is and I think it may be similar for a lot of us, and that is kind of we're going into this season. There are already a lot of questions up in the air, but what is the one that kind of sticks out to y'all as something you're just keeping an eye on for
So
the first couple weeks and on to there?
yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think we touched on it a little bit, but like I mentioned before, what does life look like without Lucho? Is the obvious one. More importantly, like where does the team attitude or like the vibes, let's say the vibes, where are the vibes at with the team? Because look at how many guys have had like this, if you want to call it a lockout, or they're not showing up to preseason. Like, how does that affect the preseason? How does that affect your team in the locker room? And that's, I think, kind of tied into like depth as well. We've seen in the preseason, we've had a lot of FCC2 guys. We've had a lot of new people come in. So, how do we get these guys to play? You mentioned CONCACAF Champions Cup is, 3 weeks away. So we need to fill those roles. We need to get solidified people in there. We have a lot of guys that are coming back from injury with Miazga and Hagelin. So figuring all the vibes out, I think it is important here over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that just to go off that question, because I think that is the biggest question, but what does the team look like without Lucho as far as formation wise? I think,
Yeah.
with Pat, the past couple of seasons, he's wanted to have that dueling striker set up top, but with Denke, does this allow him to kind of have Denke up there as a sole proprietor, if you will, with multiple center attacking mids, maybe a Kubo with Orashano underneath, or is Orashano a dueling striker? Like, there's so many ways that you can see this formation ending up. Ultimately, I think he sticks with the back five, but I think it's that middle top, right? What are we doing with our center midfield?
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good mindsets to have, and like for me, I don't really have much of a spin there because I think it's everybody's main question, right? If Luciano Acosta is gone, what in the heck is your game plan? And it's we know, right? It's not an easy replacement. We said that, but who is going to step up and pick up that slack? You've already talked about Pablo Bucha playing more as a 10, which I think is really, really interesting, and I'd love to see a little bit more of. But do you have somebody waiting in the wings for maybe not a right now, but we hit summer transfer window and you pull a Nico Ladero out of your your magic box over here, and you're like, boom, we were sitting in
Right.
eighth to ninth, and now we've got Ladero who gets us into sixth, and we're running on a 10-game win streak going into the playoffs, and boom, right now we're set up, and we're set up for the next 5 years, right? And that's almost how I feel they might be going about this.
What are your thoughts on the Evander rumor or situation?
To just flip flop them. You take him, I'll take him. We'll equal the fee and we'll chill with it, right?
Yeah.
I like Evander. I think he and Luciano Acosta are similar but different, and I I I can't see anybody else in the Luciano Acosta role. That's a
Right.
problem. Is like I think you can go out and get almost anybody. I can be like, he's not really Luciano Costa, is he?
Right.
Right. So I am very confident in Pat Noonan's ability to make it work. But I don't think there's any part of me that'll look at that and be like, yeah, he can definitely replace Luciano Costa at FCC. It just doesn't sit there with me.
Yeah, no, I think that's you hit it spot on. Like no one's gonna be his, one of one that he was, but if there was one and you look in the league, like besides, Forsberg for you guys, like it's Evander otherwise and Messi,
Mhm.
So is Evander a perfect fit for the system that we have? Probably not, but like the dude had a career year. The only worry like we talk about is, the situation of his attitude, and does he want to play? Does he want to be here? Do we want the same sort of scenario that we had in some ways with Lucho?
Yeah.
So that's the big question.
Man, well that was the only big thing for me was like he made it very clear. It's like I'm not, nope, I don't want to do it anymore. So you bring him in and you keep him in a place he doesn't want to be. And I think you hit it really, really well there as well, right? You have that issue with Luciano Costa. I remember, and it very surprisingly, it always happened when I captained him on my fantasy team where he was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to take this one off, guys. It's just, and you could tell like he just switched off. Like anytime he lost the
Yeah.
ball, if he really wanted it, he's getting that ball back. But too often, he just kind of was like, somebody else can do it, right? And I feel like Evander would be a similar mentality in that sense, and it'd be difficult to justify spend. If you could get him on a GAM deal with a couple of draft picks thrown in, that's one thing. But spending cold hard cash for basically the same attitude and maybe even a worse attitude may be tough to spin when you can go out and get somebody maybe for half the price who's going to actually want to put the work in, right? But again, you're not, if you are looking for somebody very quickly to replace 3 years of an MVP level, production, Evander might be your guy. So, well, guys, we've chatted about additions, losses, breakout players, questions. It's time we hit the big question. Where is FCC finishing this year?
Yeah, I think, for us, the past couple years, supporter shields, top three last year. I think for me, another top three finish is almost expected. The quality of the squad, that we've talked about is way too good not to finish top three. With Miazga and Robinson in the back, the addition of Denke up top. I think that's just the minimum requirement for FC Cincinnati this season. I think they need a trophy in any of their competitions to feel like this season was a success.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm gonna go third in the East. I think your top three is probably top three all MLS, Sam. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go third in the East, similar to last year, just because of the uncertainty right now. I don't know if the beginning of the season is probably not gonna look fantastic. Towards the middle of the season, hopefully get some people, possibly in, like you mentioned. And then by the end of the year, like a similar situation to New York last year, like you can go on a run and you can get hot and you can make the MLS Cup finals. So I mean, if you have the right pieces and the talent, it's obviously just putting it together. But in the MLS, we've seen like you can go on these runs and you can do these things. I think the talent is there. It's just putting it all together at the right time.
I agree with you on that last point, and I'm going to tie it into kind of what I was hinting at before, where I think that they struggle mightily in the first half of the season. Like they are going to try and figure out how to replace Luciano Costa with just attacking mid by committee. They might throw a second striker up there, they might put Yuya Kubo in that role. They might do a whole bunch of different things, and they may struggle to find the right combination. But I do have a feeling that if it doesn't come, within the next 2 weeks, they have it lined up for the first day that window opens in the summer, and then they start picking it up. I have them traveling for the best of three series. So I have them between 5 and 8. I don't have them as a play-in game, but I have them kind of in that bottom range until this guy comes in, brings them up. But the gap may be too big at that point to get to the top three. So they may be traveling, but they're that dangerous team that you're like, I do not want to play them when it comes to the best of three. I don't want to play them at all. Right. So that's kind of where I've got them.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head there too. Like We did it last year. It was the similar start. Everyone kind of lost their mind around here, but they started to pick it up as you go along. So I expect the same. I hope that Pat Noonan doesn't have to make as many adjustments in the lineup like he did last year.
Yeah.
I think 42 different lineups in a row or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully that doesn't have to happen, but we'll see.
Awesome, y'all. Well, thank you guys so much for being, first of all, being accommodating. Those who are watching it online, since we're not live, have no idea the struggle it took to get this done. But I really appreciate you guys being flexible and hopping in here. I want to give you guys a little bit of time to let people know where to find you and your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Goals TV as well, as you guys are. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can also see our hot takes on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We got it all. So feel free to check us out, leave comments, and just support us.
Yeah, guys, please do. We're here growing this. We do this so that we can meet our new friends and be a part of this, but also to grow this community. So get on over there, give them a little bit of love, and tell them we sent you. If you're new here, if this is your first time seeing the designated players, we are doing all 30 teams in this little series here. So if you're interested on what your opponents look like or what your Eastern Conference foes may look like, hop on in here. We'll be chatting with a whole bunch of other creators as well. And then of course we are out here doing MLS news as it breaks. We're doing MLS history, and we're trying to bring back some clever little games too. So we're just all over the place, and we are also anywhere you get your podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We're anywhere you want us to be. So guys, thanks so much again for being here. We really, really enjoyed having you, and we want to get everybody back together again. So Connor has told me that I need to tell everybody we're getting back together at some point when he's free and available. So we'll have to get that going again. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.